Tonight we slip off our sandals and step into the ancient deserts of Persia, a land where the sun scorches like a furnace by day and chills you with silence by night. You'll walk dusty paths where sandals crunch over cracked clay, and you'll peer up at towers made of mud and wind, silent guardians of the coolest secrets of the ancient world. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is there. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing now under a sky so wide, it almost feels like a ceiling you could poke your finger through. The Persian Empire stretches before you, vast, sun-baked and humming with human invention. Cities like Yazd, Shiraz, and ancient Persepolis thrive here in the heart of the desert. It's hot, not just sweaty forehead hot, but I might faint if I blink too hard hot. In midsummer, it's not uncommon for temperatures to drift well past 40 degrees C. That's 104 degrees F for the Fahrenheit folks. And yet people live. They cook, sleep, work, and dream. How? Not with electricity, obviously. There's no magic freon gas or rotating ceiling fans here, but there is brilliance. And it starts, funnily enough, with the mud beneath your feet. You kneel, pick up a fistful of dusty clay. This is not just dirt. It's building material, resource, insulation, and technology all in one. When mixed with straw and dried in the sun, this humble mud transforms into bricks. Not your average chilly red ones. These breathe, these think. Their porous texture and thick form don't just hold up walls, they hold out heat. That's your first surprise. The walls themselves are part of the system. Not just decoration or structure, but climate management tools. They absorb the brutal sun during the day and release the warmth slowly during the cooler nights, keeping indoor temperatures steady and sleep-worthy. Now imagine yourself inside one of these ancient homes. It's midday. Outside, goats are panting and the streets shimmer with heat mirages. But inside, it's cool. Not Arctic blast cool, but gentle, cellar-like soothing. Like a sigh after a long morning. Your skin stops prickling. Your breath slows. You press your hand to the inner wall. It's not cold, but it's definitely cooler than your sun-baked shoulders. Historians still argue whether this passive cooling strategy was a happy accident or the result of centuries of observation and tweaking. Maybe it started with someone digging a deeper house, or noticing a clay pot felt cooler than the air around it. Maybe it came from nomads watching how foxes built their dens. Either way, over time, the knowledge became systematic. These weren't just homes, they were cooling machines. A typical Persian courtyard house wasn't a single room but a full ecosystem of comfort. The homes were often built around a central open-air garden house, with a small reflecting pool or water basin. Water, you'll learn quickly, is the second pillar of Persian cooling. But tonight, let's stay focused on the architecture first. Stay with me. The buildings are oriented with precision, not just plopped randomly like Lego bricks, but aligned to catch prevailing winds, shade from the worst angles of sun, and funnel movement of air. You see those arches above the doors. They're not just pretty, they help guide rising hot air up and out. Those shaded verandas, not just nice to sit under, they protect the main living areas from direct sunlight, casting deep shadows that lower ambient heat. You might even notice the floors in some rooms dip below ground level. A sunken sitting area. More than aesthetic, it's thermodynamic. Earth, just a few feet down, is far cooler than the surface. By building a room partway underground, the Persians naturally insulated themselves from the worst of summer's fury. It's like living inside the Earth's own refrigerator. Want a fringe fact? Some of the oldest bathhouses in Persia were said to be so cleverly designed that they never exceeded a comfortable steam, even when their furnaces boiled water all day. That's right. Underground chambers, angled ventilation, and thick walls combine to keep them sauna hot in winter and gently warm, but never sweltering in summer. We don't have blueprints for everything, and that leads us to another open mystery. Were these designs copied across cities, Or were they independent strokes of genius repeating across different regions of the empire? The Persians kept few architectural treatises. What we know comes from the bones of buildings, the way the mud still stands even after centuries, and the soft clues of oral tradition. But the patterns, oh, the patterns speak volumes. Look up again. Over the rooftops of Yazd, tall, rectangular towers rise like watchful periscopes. Don't climb them yet. We'll get there soon. But for now, just marvel at how the people beneath those towers live not in defiance of their climate, but in quiet conversation with it. Mud, wind, water, and time. Not bad ingredients for comfort, huh? And the best part, they never paid a single energy bill, which, considering how much modern folks pay to keep cool, is either humbling or enraging. Maybe both. You look up now, eyes narrowing against the dusty gold light of a desert afternoon. There it is, that strange tower you spotted earlier. It rises out of the roof like a chimney in reverse. Tall, slender, with slatted openings on all four sides. It looks like it's trying to talk to the wind, and in a way it is. You step toward it, sandals crunching softly on sun-baked clay, and tilt your head. This isn't decoration. This is a badger, a wind catcher, and in ancient Persia it was the VIP of the comfort world. Imagine you're living in Yazd 1500 years ago. It's August. The sun is relentless, and even the lizards are looking for air conditioning. You climb onto your roof and stare at your badger with something like affection. Because while your neighbor is sweating it out like a boiled fig, you're about to nap in a cooled room with a breeze so soft it might as well be humming lullabies. How? Let's climb up and peek inside. The wind catcher isn't magic. It's engineering that flirts with poetry. The slits on each side are aligned to catch the prevailing breeze. Not just the strong breeze, mind you, but the high, moving air that sails above the stagnant heat of the city below. It's like they understood turbulence before science could name it. The tower funnels that air downward into the home, and thanks to some clever internal design, slanted shafts, directional flaps, and sometimes even channels lined with cool water, the hot air is forced out while the cooler air is drawn in. You stand beneath the opening now and feel it, that lazy swirl of desert wind, softened and filtered, drifting across your face like a whispered promise. No motors, no electricity, just geometry, pressure differentials, and an almost romantic relationship with the wind. In some cities, wind catchers were tuned like instruments. Builders would adjust slits for seasonal changes, even plug up certain vents during sandstorms. Some towers had multiple chambers for different wind directions, each one tuned to shift airflow like sails on a boat. A few even had tiny wooden flaps that fluttered in certain conditions, almost like the tower was breathing. Quirky tidbit for you. In some older villages, there were neighborhood competitions over who had the tallest or most elaborate wind catcher. One traveler even joked that some people gave their badgers names like family pets. Which, fair. If it keeps you from melting into a human puddle, it deserves a name. But these towers weren't just for homes. Enter the mosques, palaces, and caravanserais, those roadside inns where weary travelers stopped for rest and refreshment. Their wind catchers were massive, often paired with underground water channels. Imagine arriving after a 3-day camel ride and stepping into a stone-walled room where cool air seeps from vents and your dusty skin sighs with relief. You might even believe in miracles. Now, let's talk about one of the weirdest facts that historians still argue over. Some believe the towers didn't just pull air down. They could also push hot air up using convection. If no breeze was present, the interior of the tower, heated by the sun, would create a pressure differential, pulling hot air out of the building and replacing it with cooler air from shaded courtyards below. Others say that's wishful thinking, and that the real airflow depended entirely on wind direction. The debate remains, were the Persians harnessing convection, or did that just accidentally help? There's no definitive answer, just a stack of ancient ruins and a handful of modern simulations trying to whisper secrets from the past. Either way, you walk into a badger-cooled room and feel it in your skin. The temperature inside can be up to 10 degrees cooler than the outside, and that's before we even get to the next stage of their cooling genius. Still, let's stay here a moment longer. You sit under a high ceiling painted in faded blues and silvers, listening to the soft hush of wind moving through the vents. It reminds you of ocean waves, far away but familiar. A cat stretches lazily on a tile floor, clearly a fan of windcatcher living. The air moves gently across your face, lifting the sweat from your brow, coaxing your muscles to release the day. You breathe in, and you realize something. This tower isn't just cooling you down. It's inviting you to slow down, to move with the rhythm of the wind. That's what makes it so elegant. In modern cities, we blast air conditioners with the brute force of compressors and power grids. But here, in a desert empire with no electricity, people simply listen to the wind. And then they built homes that could listen, too. Some say wind catchers may have originated in Egypt or even the Indus Valley, but it was the Persians who perfected them, who integrated them into neighborhoods like organs in a body. You glance out over the rooftops again and realize the whole city is breathing, one gentle gust at a time. Modern architects have tried to copy them. A few experimental buildings in Dubai, even some luxury homes in Arizona, use updated versions of Badgers. But most of the world still reaches for switches and remotes. Yet here you are, in silence, in wind, and not a single watt burned. If you listen closely enough, it almost makes you feel smug. You wake slowly from a nap, yes, a nap, and stretch your limbs across the cool, tiled floor. Outside, the sun hasn't relented. It pours gold over rooftops and bakes every pebble and shutter. But here, inside this thick-walled haven, you feel like you've slipped beneath the surface of a quiet lake. Time to look closer. You walk to the wall and knock gently, just a soft thunk-thunk sound. It's not stone, not wood. This is mud brick, keshed in Persian, made from straw, water, and earth, laid by hand, dried by sun. And here's the thing, these aren't just walls, they're part of the cooling system. These bricks are basically the lungs of the house. Let's test it. You press your cheek to the mud brick. It feels not cold, but definitely cool. Solid, comforting, like the inside of a clay pot filled with spring water. The reason, these bricks breathe. Their porous texture absorbs the day's heat slowly, spreads it through their mass, and releases it only after the outside temperature drops, usually at night. It's called thermal lag. The heat just waits. It doesn't flood the room. It drips like a slow faucet, too late to ruin your comfort. In places like Yazd, where summers stretch into the realm of the ridiculous, some walls were over 3 feet thick. People didn't just build homes, they built shields. But walls alone weren't enough. That's where the water comes in. You're led now to the center of a courtyard. Here sits a shallow basin, glistening, barely rippling. A house. The water isn't for drinking, it's for cooling. The breeze drifts across the surface, picks up moisture, and carries it through the open-air corridors like nature's perfume. You inhale. The scent is soft. Dust, sun-warmed stone, and a faint mineral sweetness. Evaporative cooling. It's simple. Air passes over water. The water evaporates. That phase change consumes heat from the air. Voila, instant temperature drop. Like walking past a waterfall on a hot day. But in Persia, it's all engineered with stillness, not splashing. Now let's get delightfully nerdy. Some homes had qanats, underground aqueducts, that channeled mountain water miles across the desert. That water was used for drinking, farming, and, cooling. It flowed beneath the house in subterranean channels. When a shaft of warm air from the windcatcher passed over that cool stream, it dropped in temperature and rose up into the home, cooled, cleaned, and ready for lounging. You're walking now through one of these old homes. The air smells faintly of mud and time. It's 20 degrees cooler in here than outside, and not a single electric wire is in sight. You enter a room called a shabeston, a semi-underground space often used for sleeping during the hottest months. The windcatcher channels air through a qanat beneath it, pushes it across the cool water, and lets it rise into the room like a sigh. If you had to design a nap palace, this would be it. Soft cushions, clay walls, and a breeze that smells faintly of snowmelt. Quirky tidbit. Persian aristocrats were so obsessed with cooling that they sometimes installed multiple badgers facing different directions, like wind-gathering Pokemon. Some even had clever pulley systems to hang wet linens in front of air inlets, increasing humidity and cooling power. Think of it as the ancient world swamp cooler, minus the noise and rust. Now, you might be wondering, where didn't this work? Well, that's where the scholars get testy. Some argue that evaporative cooling only works in dry regions. Too much humidity, the system fails. So was it genius adaptation or just lucky geography? Others claim that badgers were used even in wetter parts of Iran, but maybe with tweaks we haven't uncovered yet. Historians still argue whether certain massive badgers were ceremonial or functional. Some rise 40 feet above the domes of old bathhouses. Were they necessary? Or were they just a flex? You crouch down now and trail your fingers along the basin's edge. The water's not cold, but it's cool enough to make your skin sigh. You can see how a family might gather here in the early evening. Children chasing shadows around the walls. A grandmother humming beside the house. A clay cup of cold goat's milk sweating in someone's palm. There's a rhythm to it. Wake early. Rest at midday. Share stories when the wind comes. You glance up. A slant of sunlight touches the edge of the basin. The shadow of a badger flickers on the wall behind it, like a sundial marking the hours in quiet, fluttering patterns. And it hits you. They didn't just survive the desert. They tamed it, with bricks, water, and patience. Which, let's be honest, is more than most of us manage with central air and 3 fans going at once. You duck your head now and step into a corridor carved from the very bones of the earth. The air thickens, not unpleasantly, but with that sudden drop in sound and temperature you feel when entering a cave. Stone replaces sun, silence replaces wind, and your feet echo softly as you descend into the cooler layers of Persia's most ambitious trick, the Qanat, a marvel hiding just beneath the surface. Imagine a tunnel dug by hand, sometimes hundreds of miles long, sloping ever so gently, like the breath of a patient god. It channels meltwater from mountain springs all the way to desert cities, gliding underground, untouched by heat or time. These aqueducts are the arteries of ancient Persia, delivering not just water but life itself. You walk beside one now. It runs beneath your feet, quiet and dark. A narrow canal, no wider than your shoulder span, burbling softly in the gloom. The air here feels ancient. It smells of minerals and wet clay. You trail your fingers against the damp stone and feel history pulse beneath your hand. Above you, homes, gardens, bathhouses, entire cities, all cooled, irrigated, and sustained by these unseen channels. But there's another wonder down here, something that feels almost impossible. You turn the corner and face what looks like a giant dome, rising from the earth like a turtle's shell. It's smooth, pale, and utterly out of place. Welcome to the Yakshul, Persia's ancient ice pit. Yes, ice, in the desert. And no, you're not dreaming. The Yakshul is one of the most magical structures you'll ever step inside. From the outside, it looks like a giant beehive made of mud brick. Inside, a deep subterranean chamber capable of storing ice through the brutal Persian summer. How? A blend of shade, insulation, airflow, and plain old genius. You step inside. The temperature drops instantly. The walls are over 2 meters thick and infused with a special mortar made from sand, egg whites, clay, lime, and goat hair, waterproof and wildly durable. These people weren't just building coolers, they were building legacies. Here's how it worked. During winter nights, shallow pools were dug outside the Yakshul. Water from the Qanats filled them. Desert nights could be freezing, literally, so the water would turn to ice by morning. Workers would then haul the slabs into the pit and stack them, layer by layer, covered with straw or ash to prevent melting. And thanks to the domed shape and ventilation shafts, heat was drawn out of the structure while cool air sank inward. The insulation was so good, Families could store ice here until the end of summer. Some even used it to make chilled treats or preserve food, an ancient Persian version of the popsicle. Quirky fringe fact: there are stories, half-truth, half-myth, that some Persian nobles had snow delivered by camel from mountain peaks just to chill their sherbets. Whether that's decadence or dedication is up to you. Historians still argue whether the yak chills were first used strictly for ice storage, or if they began as general-purpose cold storage pits. Some believe the structure evolved in response to the ice itself. Others say the ice was the afterthought, an unexpected benefit of something built for grain or fruit. No blueprints remain, only the silence of these giant domes, whispering their frosty secrets to those who dare to enter. You sit now on a smooth, cool stone inside the yakshul. You breathe deeply. Your sweat dries. Your heart rate slows. It's like nature pressed pause. Above your head, a tiny vent allows hot air to rise out while cold air pools at the base. The genius isn't in any one part, but in how everything works together. Geometry, physics, timing, wind, water, earth, and patience. You realize how interconnected it all is. The badger channels the wind. The walls absorb and delay the heat. The courtyard pools humidify and soothe. The Qanat waters cool the air before it rises into rooms. And the yakshul, deep below it all, guards the one thing no one expects to find in the desert. Cold, it's like a symphony with no conductor. Everything plays its part in perfect timing. You rise and walk slowly back toward the Qanat tunnel. As you emerge, blinking into the afternoon light, you feel refreshed, like you've stepped from one world into another. Above ground, the sun still rules, but you now carry a secret, that below the surface, in mud and water, the Persians sculpted time and temperature like artists. And without any wires or fossil fuels, they made a world where cold could survive the fire of summer. Go on, take a deep breath. Feels good, doesn't it? You walk now through the winding alleys of Yazd, past ochre walls that shimmer with late sun, past latticed windows and arched wooden doors. A breeze brushes your cheek, soft, as if remembering where it came from. You glance up. Another windcatcher stands tall, its four mouths open to the sky like a listening tower. But something feels different this time, because now you know what's hidden beneath these ancient homes. Cool courtyards, silent qanats, ice domes, and the breath of buildings that once mastered the desert without a single electric hum. You turn a corner and suddenly, you're not in Yazd anymore. You're home, a modern city, concrete towers, glowing screens, the hum of air conditioners throbbing from every window. The magic is mechanical now, the science electrical, but traces of Persia's wisdom still linger in places you'd never expect. You notice a set of high vents in a new eco-friendly school building. They look familiar, too familiar. Turns out they're modeled after badgers, rebranded as passive cooling towers. Same principle, modern twist. And there, an apartment complex with adobe-style walls, thick and curving. Thermal lag at work. The walls don't cool with a whisper anymore, but the silence is still there. Step inside a mall in Dubai, or a high-end hotel in Arizona, and you might feel that ghost of a breeze again. Wind filtered through fountains or low-lit water walls. It's more luxury now than necessity, but the soul is Persian. Even your own home. If you've ever opened opposite windows to let the air pull through, congratulations. You've channeled a little badger energy. There's a name for this in architecture: bioclimatic design. It's not a trend, it's a remembering. A reaching back to when people built with the land, not against it. Historians, naturally, still debate how directly modern green buildings borrow from Persia's ancient blueprints. Some say we rediscovered these ideas through European monks and Islamic Spain. Others insist the knowledge never really disappeared, just got buried under wires and drywall. You run your fingers along the bricks of a newer building, feeling the echoes of the past in its curves and vents. Maybe the architect was inspired, maybe not, but it makes you wonder, what else have we forgotten? You think about that dome of the Yakshul, how it harnessed physics without even knowing Newton's name. How something as ordinary as mud could become a fortress against 45 degrees C heat, and how in a world where comfort now costs money and energy, ancient Persians managed to live in balance with their desert, with elegance and cool toes. A quirky side note, in some regions of Iran today, people still use badgers and mud brick homes, not for nostalgia, for comfort. Some even argue that on the hottest days, the traditional houses outperform the air-conditioned ones. Not bad for something built without blueprints or blue lets you pause at the edge of an old rooftop. Below, the city glows. Lights flicker, fans spin, traffic hums. But rising above it all, like gentle towers in prayer, the wind catchers still stand. Some are crumbling, some still catch the breeze, all of them silent poems in mud and wind. You close your eyes, feel the cool breath of earth and sky, and remember, before switches and settings, there was just smart design. Before fans and filters, there was patience, clay, and wind. And before air conditioning was a bill, it was a birthright. So now, as the night deepens and the world softens, let your thoughts drift like wind through those ancient towers. Slow, steady, and gentle. Picture the soft hush of air moving through cool courtyards, the quiet patience of walls holding out the heat, and the deep, restful silence of the earth cradling a dome of ice. Breathe in that ancient stillness. Breathe out the noise of now. There's wisdom in the quiet, comfort in remembering, and peace in knowing that even the hottest places on earth once cooled themselves with nothing but mud, water, and time. You wake to wind, a slow, low sighing across the open plain, the kind of wind that never stops, not angry, not gentle, just always there. Your yurt creaks a little, felt flaps tremble against the wooden frame. The air smells faintly of smoke, horsehair, and the ghost of last night's stew. You shift beneath your quilted robe, fingers curled under your chin, warm breath fogging the air. Someone outside is already stirring the embers. You hear the soft clink of a ladle, the creak of saddle leather. You're hungry, but not in a hurry. You sit up slowly, stretch your arms, and duck through the low doorway. The morning sun is a pale disk behind clouds. Horses snort in the distance, their breath steaming like kettles. You blink into the wind, and there it is, your breakfast, your lunch, and your breakfast again. A skin sack of arag, fermented mare's milk, cloudy white, fizzy, sharp enough to tickle your tongue. You sip it with both hands. The taste, somewhere between sour yogurt, cider vinegar, and a dare. But you've had worse, much worse. Remember the time someone slipped you boiled sheep cartilage wrapped in boiled sheep ear. You try not to. You nod politely at the old man tying his coat with rope, his beard crusted in frost. He offers you a small cloth pouch, tied with string. Inside, crumbly white cubes of arul dried curds, rock hard, like edible chalk that had a long philosophical conversation with cheese. You bite down, crunch. You chew for a long time. Your jaw will thank you later. Next, a lump of soft cheese, fresh this morning. It's pale and wobbly, tasting like the inside of a butter churn that forgot to mind its manners. Still, it's comforting, especially with warm tea. You wrap your cloak tighter and get moving. The midday stop is still hours away, plenty of time to pack. So you do. From the supply satchels you gather. A flat round of butter, wrapped in bark. A cloth full of dried curds, enough to break a molar. 2 bladders of arag, because one is never enough. A knotted rag with boiled sheep's heart, still slightly warm. And a pouch of fermented yogurt so old, it might legally be considered a citizen. Each item tucked with care into worn bags, lined with felt. No plastic, no foil, just wool, skin, and silence. As you roll up the bedding, someone passes you a handful of wild onions. Not technically lunch, but technically edible. You nod gratefully. Before you mount your horse, you glance at the small clay pot by the fire. Inside, a custardy something. Milk boiled down with stones until thick like porridge. Some call it satsk. Others call it that thing that makes your stomach regret its choices. But when the wind's cold, it's perfect. You scoop a bit into a hollow horn. It jiggles, then disappears into your pack. Everything tastes better when the steppe is endless. You mount your horse and ride. The rhythm of hoofbeats, the creak of saddle straps, the occasional burp from a bag of air shifting behind you. This, apparently, is lunch on the go. Somewhere behind you, a dog trots beside the cart. Somewhere ahead, someone's hat blows away and is never seen again. The land is big. The wind bigger. You ride on. Mainstream fact. Mongolian nomads did, and still do, rely heavily on dairy for both hydration and nutrition. Arag remains central to their culture, especially in summer. Quirky tidbit. That rock-hard dried curd arul was sometimes softened in the mouth like candy or used to teeth babies, depending on who you ask. Scholarly debate. Historians still argue whether fermented mare's milk was a practical invention or an acquired taste taken way too far. But for now, it's just you, your horse, your bouncing bag of mysterious dairy products, and the wind always. Always the wind. The sun climbs higher, but it doesn't get any warmer. You tug your cloak across your chest as the wind picks up grit and tosses it gently into your face, like nature's exfoliation treatment, only more personal. Your horse shifts beneath you, hungry too. You both are. And finally, a shape in the distance, low, dark, and still, means it's time to stop. A break. A place to eat. A break from bouncing, breathing dust, and bracing against the wind like it's a poorly behaved dinner guest. You slide off the saddle, knees stiff, thighs humming from hours of gripping. The earth crunches beneath your boots, dry grass and tiny bones. Someone has already built a low stone ring and laid firewood inside. The fire crackles alive as a spark catches. Lunch begins in pieces. You kneel, untie your bag. Inside, the boiled sheep's heart. Cold now. Slick. You slice it with a dull knife and pass a piece to the boy beside you, who eats it without comment. You do the same. Salty, tender in a chewy sort of way. You follow it with more arul because why not punish your molars a little further? Then comes the real centerpiece. Dried meat. Borts. Thin strips tough as old leather and brown as saddle hide. You hold it up to the sun and it looks translucent, like edible parchment. Chew, chew more, chew again. Each piece tastes like smoke and survival. Usually it's made from beef or mutton, sometimes horse, occasionally something with too many legs and not enough witnesses. The smoke flavor comes from weeks of drying near the fire, hung from the roof of a yurt, collecting the scent of whatever stew or stranger happened to pass by. Today's borts tastes like someone smoked it beside a goat with trust issues. Still, you chew. Then, something in a pouch you don't recognize. You open it cautiously. Inside, something jelly-like, brownish. Smells faintly like liver, but also like regret. You poke it, wobble, not sure if it's meat, sauce, or both. You look up. The old man shrugs. Sheep organs, he says, helpful. You try a piece. It's indescribable, not bad. Not good, just there. Like a flavor that got halfway through being born, then fell asleep. You chase it with a swig of arak, which doesn't help but at least resets the senses. Beside you, someone pulls out rendered sheep fat, a creamy, soft paste that's spread on bread or eaten plain. You try a spoonful. It coats your mouth like candle wax. Tastes like if butter grew up in a tent and learned how to wrestle. You try not to grimace, but inside your tongue files a gentle protest. Then someone passes around a small packet wrapped in hide. Inside, a rich, dark meat, sweet-smelling, slightly glossy, camel jerky. You try a piece, surprisingly good. Sweet, salty, gamey. You blink, impressed. The group eats in silence. Only the crackling fire and the sound of teeth doing their noble work. You lean back, stretching, wiping your hands on your coat. Sunlight catches the edge of your knife. A soft breeze nudges your hat. You think about all the pieces of lunch that don't make it into cookbooks, all the meat that came from places you're not brave enough to name, and yet you feel full, strangely content. Mainstream fact: Mongolian nomads relied heavily on dried meat borts as a shelf-stable protein that could last months without spoiling, ideal for a mobile lifestyle. Fringe tidbit: rendered sheep fat was not just eaten. It was sometimes used as an emergency candle. That's right. It could feed you and light your yurt. Debate. Historians still argue whether the exact makeup of nomadic organ dishes followed consistent recipes, or whether it was more whatever's left, throw it in. You shift again, feeling the stretch of your stomach. Someone belches softly. It's considered polite here. You offer a smile. The fire dims. The meat's gone. And soon you'll be back on the saddle. But for now you rest, fat-lipped and meat-drowsy under the big, sky-wide hush of the steppe. You stand up slowly, brushing crumbs from your cloak, if you can call them crumbs. Some were flakes of fried dough. Others, quite possibly, were bits of sheep lung. But now comes the comforting part of the day. The part where warmth meets memory. The part that smells like flour, fire, and something just a little bit burnt. Flatbreads. The kind you tear with your hands. No forks, no plates, no ceremony. Just warmth passed palm to palm like a secret. The first is bortsog, deep fried in mutton fat, shaped like chunky little knots or loose diamonds. Golden on the outside, soft inside. When fresh, yours today, a bit past its prime. Crunchy, chewy, still sweet from a dusting of sugar. Almost like a donut that got lost on its way to a county fair. You bite in. It shatters dramatically. The old woman across from you nods. Good sound, she says, and dips hers into salted milk tea. You follow suit. The tea is hot and briny. Doesn't make sense to your modern brain, but it works. Salty and warm, it's more broth than beverage, like hugging a sheep from the inside out. Then someone unwraps gambir, a flatbread cooked directly on a skillet until blistered and golden, then folded into quarters. This one's thick, warm. You smell the smoke before you taste it. The edges are slightly blackened, the middle soft and layered. You break off a corner and tuck in a bit of cheese. The cheese has started sweating in your pack, so now it melts gently into the bread, forming something dangerously close to a grilled cheese sandwich from another dimension. You're not mad about it. You eat slowly, hands tucked into sleeves between bites. The bread fills your mouth, your chest, your moment. A breeze kicks dust toward your fire pit, and someone covers the embers with a metal plate. Soon the sun will shift again and the ride will resume. But for now, this is the part of the steppe that feels most like home. The part where people chew slowly, nod to each other, and don't say much at all. The wind fills in the silence. No one expects conversation, just shared warmth. You reach into your pack again and feel something solid at the bottom. Another kind of bread, this one tougher, drier, Taragian bouvre or milk bread. Hard enough to knock a nail in. You crack it in half against your knee and chew the smaller piece for what feels like 3 full songs. Nutritionally, incredibly dense. Emotionally, you miss bortsog already, but the elders insist it strengthens the teeth, or removes them depending on how ambitious you're feeling. A child walks by holding a bread round the size of a dinner plate, already gnawed into the shape of Mongolia itself. He smiles. You wave. He runs. In your palm, crumbs. In your mouth, chewy sweetness. On your breath, a blend of fried dough and ancient dairy. And beside you, someone unwraps an extra treat, a bread stuffed with fat tail, mutton, and onions. It steams when broken. The smell is strong, bold enough to clear your sinuses and maybe even your conscience. You eat with your fingers. Grease paints your lips. You don't wipe it off. This isn't lunch you politely nibble. It's lunch you survive. Mainstream fact. Mongolian nomads often cooked simple flatbreads like bortsog or gambir over open fires or hot stones, designed to travel well and last for days. Fringe tidbit. Some versions of these breads were so durable they were rumored to double as improvised weapons during disputes. Whether that's true or just a cousin's tale, well, who's to say? Debate. Historians still argue whether early nomadic doughs were leavened with wild ferments, or simply left to bubble under a saddle until done enough. You lick a bit of fat from your thumb and stretch your legs. Somewhere in your pack there's still yogurt. Somewhere nearby, a dog eyes your bread. And somewhere in your belly, the beginning of a nap stirs quietly. The light begins to shift. Not quite golden hour, more like slightly less harsh afternoon glare. You squint across the plain and see the dust trailing from another small group. Their yurts long gone behind them. It's time to ride again soon, but before that, a little something extra. Because Mongolian lunches aren't just meat and bread and the occasional dairy ambush. Sometimes, when the season's right and you're lucky or desperate, there's a twist. Someone lifts a lid from a clay jar. The smell escapes before the jar fully opens. You try not to flinch. It's sharp. Not in a bad way. Just in a your nostrils now belong to this scent way. Pickled curds. Tart, pungent, borderline hostile. Made by fermenting milk, shaping it into discs and burying them in the ground for a while, months, maybe years. Time works differently underground. The curds are hard, pale, and waxy. They squeak when you bite them. You do bite one because you're brave and it's lunch. It tastes like a dare and a lesson wrapped in salt. You chew thoughtfully. It grows on you. Then you realize it's still growing in your mouth. Someone passes you a different jar, this one dark red. Inside, pickled wild onions and berries. Tart little globes soaked in brine that smells vaguely of vinegar and celebration. You try a spoonful. The sweetness and sourness mix on your tongue like a feud between two distant relatives forced to sit next to each other at a wedding. But they dance well together. The berries stain your fingers. The onions make your eyes mist. You don't say if it's from the taste or something else. Then, a dried bundle tied with horsehair. You untie it, unroll it, and there it is. A mix of crushed wild herbs, twigs, and what suspiciously looks like crushed beetles. Flavor mix, someone mutters. You raise an eyebrow. For stew or for chewing, both. You try a pinch. It's bitter, then sweet, then floral. You're not entirely sure you didn't just eat part of a shrine, but the aftertaste is oddly calming. It lingers in your mouth and your memory. And then, oh yes, something hopping nearby. Not now, but once. The grasshopper snack. Someone pulls a tiny roasted one from a cloth pouch and offers it to you like a precious nut. You hold it between two fingers. It looks surprised, crisp, light. You pop it in your mouth. Crunch, salty, nutty, gone in seconds. You chase it with warm, slightly sour milk and wonder how you got here. Then remember, you came for lunch. And now you've eaten half the landscape. You stretch again and reach into your own pack. At the very bottom, wrapped tightly in cloth, is something cold and jiggly. Frozen milk jelly. Made from boiled milk cooled into gelatinous slabs, then chilled against ice packs made from, well, whatever froze first. You gnaw the corner, it resists. You persist. It's sweet barely, but mostly it just feels like victory. You hear laughter nearby. Someone just discovered their pickled eggs didn't survive the trip. Another shrugs and offers pickled horse sausage instead. You politely decline. For now, mainstream fact. Mongolian nomads preserved food through pickling, drying, and burying. Techniques perfect for surviving in a harsh, mobile environment without modern refrigeration. Fringe tidbit. Pickled curds and fermented horse milk weren't just food. They were sometimes used medicinally, believed to treat stomach issues, or cause them, depending on who you ask. Debate. Historians still argue whether insect-based snacks like grasshoppers were common among all nomadic tribes, or just a result of scarcity and clever experimentation. You look out over the plain, your stomach full of things you never knew existed. The breeze carries the scent of grass, earth, and something pickled. The sun dips lower, the colors soften, and the last course of the day approaches, quiet, leftover, and shared. The horses rest, their flanks twitching gently in the cooling air. A hawk circles high above, too lazy to hunt, or maybe just waiting for someone to drop a bit of meat in the dust. You sit cross-legged, cloak pulled around you, warmed not by the sun now, but by the last meal of the day, shared without rush. This isn't a meal of fire and sizzle, no boiling pots, no dramatic cuts of meat, just the quiet offering of whatever's left. You reach into your pack and draw out the crumbled remainder of a flatbread, still soft at the center, edges hardened. perfect for dipping. Someone sets down a tiny clay bowl filled with thick, almost chalky yogurt. No sugar, no syrup, no garnish. Just honest, tired milk, curdled and scraped and left to rest. You tear your bread, drag it through the yogurt and take a bite. It's sour, deeply sour, but grounding, like the taste of the step itself. Simple, full of effort, a little stubborn. Next, a small, dusty cloth is unwrapped beside you. Inside, sagan iti, a collection of dried dairy snacks. From crumbly white cubes to hard, yellowish sticks that look more like chalk than food. You take one, tuck it under your tongue, and let it soften. It takes a long time. That's the point. This isn't a rushed bite. It's a quiet one. A snack that makes you wait for it, like a story you've heard before but want to hear again anyway. Across from you, someone unwraps their own treat. A dried piece of meat wrapped in hide. No seasoning. No frills, just time. They chew slowly. And now the tea, always the tea, poured from a battered kettle darkened with years. Into shallow bowls, not cups. No handles here, just warm palms and careful sips. It's salty, yes. Still steeped in that eternal mystery. Is it soup pretending to be tea or tea pretending to be broth? Either way, it slides down easily, warming your belly from the inside. Reminding you gently that the day is ending. No one speaks much. Conversation isn't banned. It's just not required. You nod. Someone nods back. You sip. Someone slurps. That's the language here. Even the dogs are quiet. The leftover bortsog, now tough and cold, is passed around. You take one, but just hold it for a while. Let the ridges press into your fingers. Smell the old oil. Feel the history of 1,000 hands that shaped dough like this, fried it over wind-blown fires, ate it under endless skies. You nibble a corner, still sweet, still solid, still here. You look at the others. No one seems in a hurry. Dinner and lunch blend. The day folds gently into itself. You break your bortsog in two and offer half to the person beside you. They take it without a word. Sharing food here is a kind of quiet devotion, even if it's just a cube of curd or the last sip of lukewarm arak, even if the meal was strange, or too salty, or suspiciously crunchy, it was shared. And that's what matters. Mainstream fact. Mongolian communal meals often ended with milk tea, dried dairy, and leftovers, eaten slowly, without fuss, and with deep cultural significance. Fringe tidbit. In some families, the leftover crumbs of bread or cheese were gathered and fed to the fire, offered back to the spirit of the hearth. Debate. Historians still argue whether Mongolian lunch etiquette discouraged speaking, or if the silence was simply the result of chewing things that took a lifetime to soften. The wind hushes a little. You lean back, resting against your rolled saddle. The sky turns lavender. Your eyelids do the same. The last meal of the day is over, but its memory hums softly in your belly, warm, strange, and comforting. And so, the day quiets. You think of the ride ahead. You think of the bread still hidden in your coat pocket. You think of nothing at all. The step stretches forever, and the sky kindly follows. Now let your thoughts grow slow. Let them wander with the wind over wide plains, through drifting grass, beside quiet fires. You've eaten what the land offers: tough bread, warm milk, sweet stillness. No need for more tonight. Let your breath soften. Let your jaw unclench. The fire's gone low. The horses are sleeping, and your pack is light. You are full, not just of food, but of peace, of time well traveled, of flavors forgotten by the world, remembered now by you. Let that memory rock you gently, like hooves beneath a saddle, all the way to sleep. You wake before the bell. The air is cold and still, with only the sound of fabric rustling as you dress by touch. The wool of your habit clings to your arms like damp moss, scratchy, plain, and entirely unflattering. But that's the idea. No vanity here. You slip out into the cloister walk, stone underfoot and breath fogging before your lips. The nunnery stirs slowly, like a hive not yet warmed by sun. Around you, other women appear, some older, some barely grown, but all quiet, calm, and cloaked in the same muted grays and browns. You follow, not to the chapel yet, but to the garden. This is where the bees live. They hum softly even now in the cool morning mist, tucked into their woven skeps like drowsy sentinels. You didn't expect this, beekeeping in a place of prayer, but here they are. Dozens of dome-shaped hives, lined along the old stone wall and nestled among lavender and marigold. Sister Elfreda nods to you as she lifts the straw veil over her face. She's the keeper of the bees. The bees, she says, are closer to God than most men. You believe her. There's something sacred about them. The way they work in quiet unity. The way they make sweetness from simple things. The way they never gossip. Not that gossip would even reach their ears, tucked inside those fuzzy heads. But for the nuns, gossip is a sin you can taste on the tongue. Sharp, rotten, dangerous. So you focus instead on bees. You help lift a hive cover. Smoke curls gently over your hands. It smells of thyme and old wood. The bees stir lazily, then return to their buzzing, unconcerned. You glimpse the golden comb, sticky and perfect. Did you know that in some convents each hive was blessed? The bees were believed to carry prayers to heaven. Their hum, a kind of music, a low, vibrating chant like a droning choir in miniature. And here they are treasured. They give more than honey. They give wax, light, balm, ink for secret letters, though you didn't hear that from me. Back in the dormitory, the youngest girl once told you a tale about a nun who trained her bees to sting only rude visitors. Historians still argue whether such claims are wild legend or the hopeful dreams of sisters tired of lecherous bishops. Still, it makes you smile. You work through the morning, tending the garden and hives. The bees are patient with you. They land on your sleeve and linger, not out of aggression but curiosity, as if they sense something in you still careful, kind. Even Sister Elfreda notes it. She says the bees trust you. She hands you a new veil, a good sign. Later, while others are at psalms, you help her render wax. Thick globs, yellow as summer, slowly melt in the sunlit kitchen. You pour the wax into shallow molds. Some will become candles. Some will be mixed with herbs. A few lucky batches, Sister Elfreda confides, will go towards sealing letters that no one else is meant to read. It's said that Saint Modwina once kept a hive inside her cell. Not outside, but beside her bed. Even in her sleep, she wanted the bees close. You understand that now. The bees are quiet, honest, devoted. Not like Sister Anne, who raises an eyebrow a little too pointedly when you miss your steps in the morning chant. Or Sister Claire, who says nothing but somehow always hears everything. But you forgive them. It's hard not to chatter, harder still not to judge. You begin to see why the rule is so firm on silence. Words are sticky. They spread. Unlike honey, they rarely sweeten. The bees are easier, more predictable. You dip your finger in a tiny pool of golden syrup, still warm from the comb. It tastes like sunlight. Some monasteries called honey, the milk of the angels. And right now, you're inclined to agree. You watch the bees crawl over each other, always in motion, never colliding. Their movements are strange, like a living map being drawn by tiny feet. You remember that one of the abbesses once called them God's letter writers, always delivering news between blossoms. You wonder what the flowers are saying to each other. By mid-morning, your hands smell of mint and wax. The scratchy wool no longer bothers you. You've worked enough to forget it. A bell rings. You press your palms together. Time for chapel. You walk back slowly, bees trailing behind you like sleepy blessings. You wonder if you'll dream of them tonight. You hope you do. Not every nun finds peace here. Some spend decades yearning for things left behind: music, lovers, choices. But you're starting to see the comfort in this rhythm, in the hum of wings and the silence of vows. In a world so loud and often cruel, the quiet devotion of bees feels like grace. And for a moment, just before you pass under the stone archway, you think, maybe this life isn't about hiding from the world. Maybe it's about listening more closely to the gentle things most people miss, like the whisper of bees, like the secrets they keep, like the honey they leave behind. The bees do more than buzz and bless. They heal. By late morning, you find yourself in the small infirmary wing, a drafty stone room that smells like rosemary and something faintly sweet beneath it. A place of coughs, whispered prayers, and honey, always honey. You didn't expect it to be so central, but here, behind the veil of quiet devotion, the sisters wield jars of golden liquid like sacred relics. It's not superstition, not entirely. Honey really does help, coats throats, seals wounds, keeps rot at bay. And in a world without antibiotics or paracetamol, that's something close to a miracle. Sister Edgitha nods to you as she crushes dried lavender into a thick paste of honey and vinegar. Her hands are calloused, her movements careful. She dabs the mixture onto a strip of linen and then gently wraps it around the foot of a woman who hasn't spoken since yesterday. The woman groans, then exhales. Relief. The sisters whisper a psalm under their breath. You help stack the jars, big ones for wounds, small ones for coughs, a curious reddish one infused with wine and something sharp for womanly troubles. The nuns never say more than that. You don't ask. In some abbeys, they used honey in all manner of concoctions. Wound salves, syrups for fever, even mixed with crushed pearls for, of all things, holy beauty. A curious phrase, isn't it? Historians still argue whether such mixtures were vanity in disguise or a kind of spiritual offering. After all, the soul, like the skin, sometimes needs a little soothing. You're not sure where you stand on that, but you do know this. That warm honey, steeped with thyme and clove, made Sister Aldith stop crying last night. And that's worth something. Still, not all uses were so noble. There are whispers, of course. You hear them as you stir a pot of spiced honey in the kitchen. That some nuns, crafty, clever, use their bee balm to mask flavors. Bitter ones, medicinal, maybe forbidden, sometimes. There's a half-joke that if Sister Gadlina ever offers you honey cakes and a smile, you'd better say your prayers before taking a bite. But you don't laugh, because you've seen the glint in her eye. And besides, there are stories. Tales of sisters brewing love philters, contraceptive tonics, or gentle poisons. Rare, they say, but not impossible. Especially in places where women were told their knowledge must stay hidden in prayer. One nun, centuries ago, supposedly penned a recipe book filled with divine remedies. The margins, though, tell a different story. Scribbled notes, altered ingredients, a line about disguising pennyroyal in sweet clover. That manuscript vanished, or was hidden, or was eaten by mice who then mysteriously died. The record is, let's say, open. Even the most serene gardens have their thorns. Still, the primary use remains honest, noble even. You help bottle a fresh batch of honey and rosewater tonic. It's for a nearby village, where children are coughing hard enough to rattle windows. Sister Wolfhilda insists on adding a ribbon to each jar. They heal better when the bottle looks like love, she says, without smiling. You don't disagree. Later, as you pass by the herbarium, the scent of drying sage fills your nose. Bees drift lazily through the open window. One lands on a piece of vellum, right where Sister Tilda has been sketching a diagram of a wounded leg. She shoos it gently. Even they want to learn, she says. It's easy to forget the outside world exists. Inside these walls, the rhythm of wax and wing and whispered cures feels like its own universe. One where the bees are both saints and scribes. One where women wield power quietly, through stitches, through salves, through sweetness. It's true, not all abbeys had infirmaries. Not all nuns were healers. Some copied texts, some tended sheep, some simply prayed. But the ones with bees, they worked with more than just faith. They worked with the things that faith couldn't always reach. Infection, swelling, grief, and hunger. Because let's not forget, honey also sweetened the broth. Without it, much of the food here would taste like boiled repentance. So tonight, when the lentil stew arrives, steaming and beige, you smile to see Sister Leofwin slip in a spoonful of clover honey. The stew transforms. The sisters eat slowly, spoonfuls measured and heads bowed, and no one says a word about the sudden warmth in the bowl. But you know, they know. Some things even here don't need confession, they just need bees. You eat in silence, not just quiet, but true, aching, full-body silence. It's the midday meal and you're seated beside Sister Winfled, who chews with such deliberate care it's as if each bite is a penance. Around you, the sisters sit in long, straight rows, heads slightly bowed. No clinking, no slurping, no whispered pleasantries about the weather, only the faint rustle of habits, and the occasional stomach gurgle that somehow feels like heresy. There's no talking aloud at meals. The rule of Saint Benedict frowns on idle chatter. Words invite judgment, envy, mischief. Gossip, after all, starts with a single syllable. So instead, the sisters speak in glances, in coughs and blinks, in hand signals that look like ancient semaphore. You learn the code slowly. 3 fingers tapped against the lip equals more broth. A raised eyebrow equals pass the bread. A twitch of the mouth followed by a double blink equals did you see Sister Mildred Tripp in the herb garden? No one says anything, but you feel it, like invisible ink warming on the page. This is how nuns manage to keep gossip alive, without making a sound. Not that they'd call it gossip, of course. They'd say it's concern, observation, communal awareness, perhaps. But you see it clearly when Sister Aelfgifu enters late, flustered, her veil askew. Half the room exchanges meaningful looks. You wonder how the Virgin Mary might have handled it, probably with kindness. Maybe a nap. You're not supposed to judge, but even the holiest among you occasionally thinks, well, that's curious. Still, gossip here doesn't sound like it does in the world outside. There are no shouted scandals or salacious confessions, just murmurs. The way someone's boots sound hurried in the hallway. The strange stain on the abbot's robe. That new sister who talks to her bees more than to people. Oh, right, that's you. You learn to move carefully through this world of hushes. A glance can say too much. A silence even more. The abbess once said, "Gossip is the devil's song, and silence is the hymn of the faithful." That sounded lovely, until you saw Sister Ethelberga smiling just a little too broadly when she said it. Historians still argue whether these silent tables actually suppressed scandal, or simply made it more creative. Because people are clever, and people trapped together in cold stone buildings with only soup, scripture, and chapped hands, are very clever. You once heard that a convent in Normandy used gestures so elaborate they could reenact entire psalms with their pinkies. Another in Bavaria supposedly developed a full sign language just to communicate gossip without breaking the rule. The rule was never meant to be broken, but it could, flex. This is how nuns survived, not by rebellion but by invention. So you invent your own gestures. A tug on your sleeve for bees are doing well. A slow nod for honey batches curring. A quick scratch of your chin for please save me from this boiled cabbage. Sister Elfrida picks them up fast. At night you find her sketching symbols in the margins of a prayer book. Dots and lines. A kind of bee code for the devout. You ask nothing. She tells you everything silently. You begin to see how words, when overused, spoil things. Silence lets things settle. During Compline, you sit in the chapel as candlelight flickers over stone walls. You feel the silence wrap around you like wool. It doesn't suffocate, it steadies. You think about how different the world outside must feel. Loud, chaotic, full of noise that rushes in and never leaves. Here, silence is a balm, though of course, it also hides things. You pass by Sister Gadlina in the corridor. Her smile is gentle. Her eyes are not. She's always in the right place. Always listening, always helpful. Some say she used to be nobility. Others claim she came here to escape scandal. No one asks, but everyone wonders. And wondering, as you now know, is just gossip in a habit. Still, there's safety in these walls. A quiet protection. Meals pass. Chores continue. Words remain tucked away like pearls in linen. You find yourself talking less, even in your own mind. You notice more. The bees hum lower when it's about to rain. The bread tastes sweeter when warm. Sister Winfled's limp is worse after cold mornings. This is not nothing. This is the kind of awareness that only silence gives. You start to see gossip for what it really is, a way of filling the emptiness. But here, in this quiet rhythm of prayer, labor, and honey, the emptiness doesn't feel hollow. It feels holy. Evening falls slowly like honey slipping from a spoon. You drift from the chapel to the workshop, where Sister Elfreda waits with her wax molds, and the air smells thick with lavender, resin, and fire. The beeswax is cooling in shallow trays, solidifying into blocks the color of old sunlight. You kneel beside her and trace your fingers across the surface. It's soft, pliable, warm, like skin but gentler. This wax is sacred, not just because it lights the chapel, though it does. Not just because it's poured with care and prayer, though it is. No, the wax means more. It stores things, secrets, codes, confessions. You learn that not all candles are made alike. Some are pure white, clean, and unremarkable. Others have faint traces of herbs, barely noticeable to the nose, but strong in meaning. Rue for repentance, rosemary for memory, wormwood for warning. These candles don't burn at random. They're lit at specific times, specific altars, specific prayers. No one explains this openly, but you watch, and you learn. There's one candle, short, misshapen, with a soft tilt to one side, that Sister Wolfhilda lights every Thursday just before Vespers. Always at the altar to St. Agnes, always alone. You ask nothing, but your silence says, "I noticed." She nods once slowly. That's enough. Historians still argue whether candle rituals like these were symbolic, medicinal, or something closer to spellwork in disguise. A few even claim that some convents allowed veiled remnants of older, pre-Christian rites to slip in beneath the chants. They call it syncretism. The nuns just call it what we do, and what they do is quiet, careful magic. Tonight, you help shape the wax. You learn how to pour it thin and roll it tight into letter seals, how to embed tiny dried petals into the base so the sender knows if it's been opened. Some of these seals are decorative, others less so. There's one recipe, Sister Elfreda whispers, that uses beeswax, powdered iron, and soot to create a wax that crumbles only when warmed by breath. Not touch, not heat, just breath. You test it, it works. A message meant for only one person, whispered open, hidden again. You wonder how many secrets have passed through these halls, folded into wax and bound in silence. Later, you help polish the candles for Sunday Mass. The beeswax gleams in the firelight, softer than tallow. Smells better too, less of smoke, more of honeyed air. In some monasteries, candles made from beeswax were considered purer, untouched by flesh or blood, fit for God. The poorer abbeys used animal fat, greasy, sooty, humble. But here, the bees serve the sisters. They gift them this golden light. You carry a finished candle into the scriptorium, where Sister Leofwin is copying a page of scripture. Her quill scritches gently across the vellum. She pauses only to adjust the candle's wick, trimming it with practiced hands. Even here, the beeswax matters. It burns steadier, lets the ink dry evenly, protects the parchment from moisture. Some say the bees listen when you write by their light, that they remember the words, that they carry them in their humming. You want to believe that, because lately you've been writing too, not official copies. Nothing sanctioned, just little scraps. Observations, half prayers. You keep them hidden beneath your mattress, folded in wax paper. Tonight you write. The bees hum louder when we sing. You tuck it away. Later, Sister Elfreda shows you an old candle mold, carved with strange symbols. Not Latin, not English. A spiral here, a jagged line there. She doesn't know where it came from. Was here before me, she says softly. You trace it with your thumb. You wonder if it's a code, or just a decoration, or something older still. In these quiet corners, the line between sacred and secret blurs. You walk back to your dormitory in the glow of candlelight. The wax is warm in your hands. You think of the bees that made it, thousands of them working together in darkness, shaping light. Not for glory, not for recognition, just because that's what they do. You pass Sister Gadlina in the hallway. She nods. You nod. Behind her, a tray of candles flickers. You wonder which ones hold meaning, which ones hold memory, which ones hold warning. You fall asleep to the smell of warm wax and the faintest trace of honey. You wake in the dark before the first bell. It's not fear that stirred you, nor noise. Just a feeling like a breath from the earth pulling you upward. The air is thick with dew. Cold stone meets your feet as you rise and dress again. Movements practiced, careful, quiet. Outside, the cloister is wrapped in soft blue shadows. You follow the bees. Not literally, of course. They're still sleeping, tucked inside their waxen cities. But something in you feels drawn back to the garden, to the hives, to the place where the hum once felt like silence, and silence now feels like a hum. Sister Elfreda is already there. She doesn't look surprised to see you. She's lighting a small beeswax candle at the base of one of the hives. A tiny flame flickering in the dim morning hush. You kneel beside her. The bees stir faintly, still sluggish with night. You can feel them, can't you? She says, so softly the mist almost swallows it. You nod. There's a kind of music here, a low vibration that isn't quite sound. It buzzes at the base of your neck, behind your ribs. It fills you, grounds you. You sit with her for a long time, watching the light grow. Then come the others. One by one, a few sisters appear, silent, barefoot, wrapped in shawls. A quiet vigil, a shared secret. No bells summon them, only memory. They bring small offerings, a sprig of mint, a dried petal, a tiny cake of bread sweetened with last summer's honey. They place them gently near the hives. The bees do not stir. This is not worship exactly. It's not pagan. It's not Christian. It's just what they do. A detour in devotion. A buzzing sidestep in the dance of obedience. A moment where the world slows. You close your eyes. You listen. The bees begin to hum, not many, just a few, warming their wings, preparing for the day. The sisters hum too without realizing. A soft, low chant, wordless, gentle, no doctrine, no hymn, just sound, like water flowing backwards. Like breath. Somewhere in the distance, a bell finally rings. But you don't move. Not yet. This moment is yours. You think about everything the bees have given. Honey for healing. Wax for writing, light for praying, and above all, rhythm. The slow, sacred pattern of work and rest, of hush and hum. The reminder that sweetness is made quietly, over time, in dark corners, by gentle hands. You rise finally as the sun begins to spill gold across the stones. You return to the cloister with wax on your fingers and a new calm in your chest. Life here is strict, controlled, sometimes cold, but not hollow. Not when you know where to look. Not when you've seen the small acts of rebellion, A wink over soup, a honeycake slipped to a sister too thin, a candle lit for something you can't explain. The world outside may roar, but here it buzzes. Here secrets are kept in combs. Here sweetness is slow. Here even silence hums. So now, let it go. The hives are quiet again. The sisters have vanished into prayer or sleep, and the garden waits patiently for morning. You've walked their stone paths, tended their bees, kept their secrets. The wax is cooling. The candles are flickering low. Nothing more needs to be said. Let the hum stay with you. Let the rhythm hold you. Let the silence settle over your chest like a soft blanket. You're safe here, in the warmth of hidden work, in the slow unfolding of another peaceful day. Close your eyes now, and let the bees guard your dreams. You rise before the market opens. The air is thick with the scent of clay and dew, still clinging to the edges of your mud brick home. Outside, the sky is more charcoal than blue, early enough that even the roosters are murmuring in half-sleep. You sit up slowly, brushing the woven mat marks from your cheek. Somewhere beyond the wall, a frog croaks from a puddle that refuses to dry. Your fingers fumble for your pouch. It's there, tucked beside your sleeping claws. You untie the leather cord just to check. Inside, gold. Not nuggets, not coins, but soft, whispering dust. Not so much that it would tempt a thief, but enough to trade. The gold glitters faintly, even in this pre-dawn light. You breathe. Carefully, you tie it shut again and tuck it close. Your home smells of ashes and roasted millet from last night. A sleepy hand pats your shoulder, your younger sister, still curled up beside your mother. She murmurs something about the goats. You grunt in reply. Time to move. You slip outside. The clay of the street is cool under your bare feet, still damp from the night air. You glance up. Janae looms before you, quiet and drowsy, its great mud mosque like a sleeping beast in the haze. Today, you're headed to the gold market, but not directly. First, the river. Your path takes you past neighbors already stirring. An old man clanging two sticks together to chase off lazy spirits. A woman slapping laundry against a rock with rhythm like a drumbeat. One boy is using a mango peel as a sled, sliding gleefully down a slope of wet dust. His laughter breaks the silence like a bell. Soon, you're at the shore of the Niger. The river looks sleepy too, stretching wide like it's still yawning from the night. A few dugout canoes bob against the reeds, tied lazily to stumps or worn posts. The crossing is cheap if you help row. So you do. The boatman is quiet, his teeth stained red with cola nut. He hums to himself, a tune with no rhythm as you both row across the slow-moving water. Around you, the fog curls like lazy smoke. A heron flaps somewhere to your left. Halfway across, he finally speaks. Something about crocodiles. You glance down at the water, smooth, brown, unreadable. Supposedly, there was a time last season when a crocodile snatched an entire goat from the boat behind his. The story changes each time he tells it. Sometimes it was two goats. Once he said it was a Frenchman, though that doesn't seem quite right for 14th century Mali. But the point stands. Don't lean over. On the far side of the river, a market worker waves you ashore. You hop out barefoot into the silt. A girl about your age is crushing indigo powder with a rock nearby, her fingers stained like bruised plums. She nods to you with respect. Gold traders get that, not because you're rich, but because you're trusted. Carrying raw gold isn't something just anyone is allowed to do. Even here, where gold spills from hills and filters through rivers like pollen, it's precious. Regulated. You've memorized the weight of your pouch. You've practiced how to say, "This is enough for 2 lengths of dyed cloth, not 3, without sounding like a fool. From here, the path winds upward through a palm-lined trail. You pass a camel sleeping standing up, they do that, tied loosely to a wooden post. Two boys are arguing nearby over who gets to groom it later. They've decorated its tail with beads, and it swishes lazily in protest. The camel, not the boys. The sun begins to rise. It leaks upward from behind the mosque spires like honey over a carved gourd. The mud walls of the city turn orange, then gold, then blinding white in patches where the light catches. You squint, you smile. This part always feels like a blessing. The market gates aren't open yet, but nearly. You can hear someone inside sneezing. The sound echoes like it has no manners. You step aside to wait, sitting on a dusty stone bench. Others have gathered too. A woman carrying 3 enormous baskets on her head, all perfectly balanced. An old man chewing on a dried fish tail like it's a pipe. A child humming a prayer while tracing circles in the dust with her toe. You close your eyes for a moment. Breathe in, spices, dust, the faintest smell of goats and roasted plantain. And is that crocodile dung? Yes. You wrinkle your nose. Some people, especially newer traders, still use it as a sort of homemade sunscreen. Historians still argue whether this was medical tradition, sheer superstition, or a masterful prank that got wildly out of hand. Either way, the smell lingers. A bell rings softly. The gates creak open. And like ants from a cracked melon, the crowd begins to stir. Merchants, buyers, griots with loud voices, boys selling fried locusts on sticks, women from Timbuktu wrapped in sheer, shimmering veils that glitter like sunrise itself. You rise, sling your pouch across your chest, and step into the maze, but not before noticing. That same goat from earlier has now escaped the boy, slipped its leash, and is cheerfully chewing the edge of someone's prayer rug. The boy is gone. The goat is winning. You shake your head. In the market, survival depends on 3 things: keeping your gold clothes, keeping your eyes open, and never, ever trading with someone who smiles too much. Because a real merchant, they only grin when they've robbed you blind. Still, the day is yours to shape. The ground is warm now beneath your feet. The morning is alive with possibility. And somewhere beyond the cluster of sellers, the beating heart of 14th century Mali's gold trade is waiting for your footsteps. You move forward, not quickly, but with purpose, and the dust follows you like a loyal dog. The market hums awake. By the time you pass under the crumbling archway, the gold market is already in motion, like a pot that's been simmering long before you added your own little pinch of spice. Janae's open market is wide and winding, more a patchwork of shaded awnings and low tables than any formal plaza. And here, at the heart of it all, where gold speaks louder than words, the day begins not with shouting, but with watching. You pause. Everyone's eyes flicker like candle flames just for a second, sizing you up. They see the pouch on your hip. You see their practiced stillness. That's the first rule of trading in this part of the city. Speak less than you know, but more than you mean. You duck under a linen canopy where incense smoke curls like lazy snakes. The smell is heavy, amber resin and myrrh, sweet and sharp. A griot is warming up his voice in the corner, low and melodic, singing an old lineage song while plucking a ngoni. His fingers move like water. His eyes are already half asleep. You smile. The griots always arrive early. They carry the memory of Mali, its kings, battles, betrayals, and blessings, all tucked into melodies. They're history textbooks with better rhythm. You nod to him. He nods back. Nothing more, that's enough. Now to business. Your goal is simple. Trade your gold dust for goods you need, want, or can later barter elsewhere. Cloth, salt, maybe copper if the price is low, and if there's anything left over, maybe that indigo dye your sister keeps whispering about, the kind that stains your fingers for 3 days and makes even old robes look like river water under the moon. You pass 3 sellers hawking spices, powdered ginger, dried clove, and something they insist is crushed starfruit bark. One swears it cures both headaches and unfaithful husbands. The other laughs and says it's better used on goats. Then you see him, your old friend, the tooth puller. He's set up near a half-broken wall, sitting cross-legged beside a worn board of tools. Twisted metal picks, bone-handled scrapers, a cup of something vaguely alive. He waves, grinning. "Still chewing with all your own teeth," he calls, voice like cracked leather. You nod, reluctantly amused. His best customer last week was a camel driver who lost a molar to an overcooked yam. The tooth puller offered a replacement carved from ivory, though, as he confessed after 3 bowls of sorghum beer, it was really painted bone. "Looks the same," he said. "Just don't smile too wide in the sun." You step carefully past. Overhead, a strip of tattered cloth shades your path. You duck beneath it, mindful of the carved weights hanging at the corners to keep it from flying off in the desert breeze. Someone once told you they were old charms, animal bones wrapped in silver wire to ward off cheating. But you've seen enough sellers shifting weights when customers aren't looking to know the charms aren't working. In the next row, the sounds change. Here, it's the clink of brass bowls, the sharp ring of scales tapping metal. A merchant is testing your friend's gold dust, just a pinch between thumb and tongue. Some claim the taste reveals quality. Others say it's all theater. You listen. "You've mixed this," the merchant grunts. Your friend shrugs. "I haven't." "You have. This isn't all gold. There's sand." The merchant glares. Your friend glares back. Historians still argue whether sand mixing was truly common in 14th century markets, or if it's a smear campaign invented by rival traders centuries later. Either way, you pretend to adjust your pouch and take a slow step back. Best not to be nearby when someone gets caught faking dust. Just then, a low shout breaks the rhythm. It's the salt dealer. A caravan just arrived, from Taghaza likely, over the desert dunes. The salt is packed tight in rough slabs, each one white as bone and heavy enough to flatten a goat. Men unload them from camels that groan with theatrical weariness. One even tries to bite its handler, who narrowly dodges it with a loud curse. Now there's an argument breaking out over price. Again, salt in this age is nearly as precious as gold, and unlike gold dust, it doesn't get lost in the wind. You spot an opportunity, a woman who's distracted, waving her hands and insisting the last slab she bought was short by half a hand width. You slip in behind her and begin talking to the assistant instead, calmly, softly, gold in your hand. You know how to whisper a bargain. You've practiced. Your voice like warm cloth, your posture relaxed. Let them think you don't want it too much. It works. You trade for a cracked but solid piece, heavy as a promise. You tuck it under your shawl and move on. Across the way, a camel trader is painting his beast's hooves with blue clay. You pause, curious. "It keeps the jinn away," he explains without looking up. "Or keeps them in, depends on the camel." You nod as if this makes sense. Truthfully, it probably does, depending on the camel. A storyteller is gathering a small crowd at the far edge of the market, near the mosque's outer wall. His voice is like water bubbling through gravel. You catch only snippets as you pass. A tale of a gold coin swallowed by a crocodile. A desperate fisherman who traded his beard for a wife. A sultan who tried to weigh the moon on a scale made of horn. Children sit wide-eyed in the dust. One chews on a sugar date with sticky hands. Another repeats the word moon over and over softly like it's a new toy. The sun has now fully claimed the sky. Heat seeps into the stone. Shade becomes currency. You tug your head wrap tighter. You feel your shoulders begin to cook, but there's still more gold in your pouch and more deals to be made. You pass a man selling glass beads, smooth, delicate, some wrapped in copper wire. You pause. Not because you need them, but because he's smiling too much. You remember the rule. Too much smiling means someone's being robbed. So you test him. You pretend to misunderstand his price, offer a trade that's obviously too low. He agrees too quickly. You raise an eyebrow, he winks, you walk away. From somewhere close by, a griot's voice rings out again, louder this time, carried by the breeze. Dust of gold, price of kings. Traded in silence, whispered in rings. Blessed is the hand that weighs without pride. Cursed is the hand where greed will hide. You glance back. He's not singing to you, but it still feels like he is. Because here, everything speaks in riddles. Cloth whispers, dust tells tales, and even the silence knows how to bargain. You make your way deeper into the maze of the market, past stalls where henna is crushed fresh and applied with peacock feathers, past jars filled with dried scorpions, sold as cures for cowardice, past a trader from Gal with brass earrings the size of river stones, who asks where you found your pouch and what your mother's name is, and whether she likes fish stew. You don't answer, because next comes the most dangerous part, the side alleys. That's where the real trading happens, where cloaks are drawn tighter and hands stay close to knives, where you can find anything from silks smuggled out of Cairo to human labor, sold in shadow, sealed in silence. You hesitate. Then, not yet. Your gold's still too visible. You're not ready for those games. Not this early in the day. Instead, you turn toward a food stall and a patch of shade beneath an acacia tree. Time to rest, time to count, time to plan what you'll risk and what you'll keep. Because the market is a breathing thing, and now it's fully awake. The market is at its loudest now, not just with voices, but with metal, dust, clatter, and tension. You feel it in your bones. The way sound stacks on sound until it's no longer noise but pressure. Not angry, not joyful, just dense. Alive, like standing inside the chest of something massive and breathing. You sit beneath a lean acacia tree, chewing on a strip of dried plant and leather, soft with spice. The shade is uneven, flickering. Beside you, a woman fans herself with a folded reed basket. She glances your way once, then ignores you entirely. Perfect. It gives you a moment to think. Your pouch is lighter now. Gold traded for salt, for smoked meat, for thread-dyed cloth, folded carefully in your satchel. But you've saved enough dust for one final trade. Maybe two if you're clever. And now's the time for cleverness. Because this is the hour when the shadows start to twist. You rise and step back into the stream of motion. Around you, the sellers are louder, more desperate. Buyers, sweat-slick and sunburned, wave beads and bangles, raising their voices over camel grunts and drum beats. A boy trips and spills a whole basket of cola nuts into the dust. A girl screams and slaps at a monkey that's just stolen her lunch. You head toward the east wall of the market, where the stalls lean a little too close to each other, where the air smells faintly of dried blood, and where the sellers don't call out. They watch. This is where the side deals live. The merchants here don't trade loudly. They nod. They gesture. Sometimes they speak in Wolof or Soninke, and sometimes they just don't speak at all. A narrow-eyed man raises a hand. You know him. Not by name, but by pattern. He wears the same robe every week, purple with green trim. Today, he's pretending to sell incense. But beside him, under a reed mat, you see it. A stack of copper bracelets, likely smuggled from the northern coast. Not technically illegal, but not exactly declared either. You pretend not to notice. He pretends not to care. Instead, you stop 3 stalls down, where a woman is selling items wrapped in dyed linen. One by one, she unwraps them with care. Amulets, beads, a feathering brush, a brass spoon shaped like a snake. She looks up at you and says nothing. You offer a sliver of gold dust. She unwraps something else, a small square of script written on leather in neat Arabic calligraphy. Faint, worn, A verse from the Quran, she says softly, for protection during travel. You ask how old. She shrugs. Old enough to forget who wrote it, but not old enough to stop working. You trade, not because you believe it protects you, but because someone else might. And value, like faith, is whatever people agree to bow before. From behind you, a man coughs in a strange way, 3 short bursts. You glance back. There he is, the eunuch, dressed in indigo robes that shimmer like wet stone, expression as flat as polished bone. No one really knows where he's from. Some say he's an envoy of Mansa Musa's court, sent here to watch. Others say he's just a spice buyer with expensive taste and no family left to claim him. Either way, his presence quiets the space. Everyone adjusts. You move on. 2 turns later, you find yourself in a corner shaded by tattered sailcloth, patched with dozens of different fabrics. Here, the real side deals begin. A low table offers silks, smoother than any you've ever touched. Another seller has ivory carvings that are far too intricate to be legal. You make your way past them, polite but unreadable, until you see it, tucked between a jar of red dye and a stack of scrolls. A curved dagger with a handle carved from horn. The blade looks ancient. The seller watches you. You watch the dagger, you ask the price. He names something absurd, you laugh, out loud, a mistake. His eyes narrow. Fine, you murmur. What's the real price? He hesitates. You tilt your head. Or maybe I ask the eunuch to come over and weigh it for us. He scowls. Now you're getting somewhere. You trade a measured pinch of gold, the exact weight you learned from your uncle and not a grain more. He tries to sneak in a whisper-thin silver ring as a bonus, probably cursed, but you decline. Instead, you ask about a rumor, a secret passage beneath the mosque, said to lead to a vault filled with Saharan gold, guarded by a spirit who only speaks Bambara. The seller chuckles. That old tale, even the spirit is tired of hearing it. No one finds it, not anymore. You raise an eyebrow, but people used to. He shrugs. People used to believe rain came from ancestors dancing. Doesn't mean they were wrong, just means the world changed. You thank him and turn to go. As you rejoin the edge of the main market, you notice something you missed before. A ring of women sitting in silence around a clay pot, steam rising from it in slow swirls. One of them hums, eyes closed, as if speaking to something inside the pot. You don't interrupt. Some deals aren't yours to make. You continue onward, heading toward the western edge now. There you spot a man crouched beside a birdcage. Inside, a songbird the color of turmeric fluttering restlessly. The man offers a deal. Trade a little gold and he'll let it go. A gesture of mercy, or luck, depends on how you see it. You ask, will it fly back? He grins, sometimes. You decline, not because you don't care, but because you've learned this trick. Sell the release, then catch the bird again in an hour. It's good business, bad karma. Around the corner, an older woman is selling wooden charms, one for sleep, one for strength, one for memory. She offers you one carved like a hand. Helps you remember your dreams, she whispers, but only the ones that matter. You ask if it works. She grins with one gold tooth. Did you remember to come here today? Taché. You trade the charm for a copper coin you've had since last winter. She tucks it away like a secret. By now, the sun is tilting toward its descent. The light changes, warmer, richer, more golden. The dust in the air turns to glitter in the right angle. This is the hour when people become bold, or desperate, when the good trades are made fast, and the bad ones are made twice. You pass a boy carrying a live chicken upside down by its legs, whistling off-key. You pass a blind man tapping along with a carved walking stick. You pass a woman crying softly behind a tent flap, holding a broken bangle. And through it all, you hold your gold. What little remains. You've made it through the thick of it. Through the tricks, the whispers, the weighted scales, and sideways smiles. Now you must decide one more deal or walk away with what you still have. The smell of roasted cassava drifts by. Somewhere a drumbeat starts low and pulsing like a heartbeat buried under sand. You close your eyes and you listen to the music of gold, to the rhythm of risk, to the quiet truth of a market that has seen more lives pass through its dust than stars in the night sky. Then you open them and make your choice. You find shelter beneath a crooked baobab tree. It leans like an old man listening closely, its wide trunk gnarled with age, its bark carved with faded names and half-promises. The base is hollowed just enough for sitting, and it offers deep, cooling shade. You're not the first to seek refuge here, and you won't be the last. The afternoon heat has settled into a kind of heavy quiet. Even the flies seem slower. The market, still alive behind you, breathes more softly now. No longer the roaring beast of midday, but something sleepier. Gentle, but not harmless. Because this is when people talk. Not the traders, they're too busy counting. But the storytellers, the drummers. The old ones with long memories and nothing to sell but tailies. You unwrap a cloth bundle, your lunch. 2 millet cakes, still soft, and a smear of mango paste. Simple food, but sweet enough to lift the tongue and soften a weary spirit. A girl joins you. She's maybe 9, maybe 11. Age is slippery here. She doesn't speak, just settles near the tree's base, humming quietly to herself. She's peeling the skin off a roasted yam with careful fingers. Her eyes are bright with the kind of knowing that makes you a little nervous. She hums a tune you recognize, a song about a hunter who married a spirit, or maybe it was the other way around. Hard to say. The story changes depending on who sings it. Across the path, a group has gathered near a low platform. 3 drummers, 2 dancers, and a man with a voice like thunder caught in a bottle. His robe is red, his eyes wide with mischief, and he's telling a story you've heard before, but not like this. Something about a jealous prince who tried to buy the moon with gold. He offered sacks of dust, chests of nuggets, promises carved into bark and sealed with the blood of white goats. But the moon, being old and stubborn, refused to be bought. It blinked down at him every night and said, "You'll never afford me. Not with gold, not with glory, maybe with poetry." The dancers leap and spin. Dust rises like smoke. The drummers shift rhythm fast then slow, teasing the crowd's breath. And the storyteller grins. He knows this tale is nonsense. That's why it's powerful. Everyone listens more closely when the truth wears a ridiculous hat. You watch a while. Then the girl beside you whispers. You hear the one about the time it rained gold. You blink, she continues. Wasn't here, was up near Gao, long ago. Sky turned dark and gold fell like millet. People filled their cloaks. One man caught enough to build a house. Then he disappeared, took the house with him. You smile. And did it really happen, you ask? She shrugs. Maybe. Then adds, but maybe it's still out there. House made of gold, floating in the desert, waiting for someone who needs it more than they want it. You think about that. You've met plenty who want gold, few who need it. A goat wanders past, dragging a frayed rope. Its ears are pierced with beads. No one claims it. The goat pauses, looks you dead in the eye, and sneezes. You laugh softly. The girl offers you half her yam. You accept. You both sit quietly for a while. Somewhere behind you, 2 merchants are arguing about ivory pricing. One insists the tusks are from an elephant that died naturally. The other calls him a thief with a painted ox bone. Their words rise like sparrows, then vanish into the dry air. Beside the baobab, an old woman shuffles into view. Her back is bent into a crescent, and her fingers clutch a carved walking stick. Around her neck hang dozens of charms, bits of bone, shell, dyed thread, dried seeds. A mobile archive of everything she believes in. She stops at the tree, rests one hand against the trunk, and sighs. A long, slow sigh. Then she speaks, not to you, not to anyone in particular. I remember when Mansa Musa passed through here, she says. You raise an eyebrow. That would have been decades ago, maybe longer. He rode a camel with gold-studded hooves, she says, and the dust on his cloak turned to bees. I saw it. I did. She meets your gaze. Gold makes men strange, she says. It hums in their bones until they forget they were ever soft. You don't argue, she wanders off. The girl finishes her yam and licks her fingers. Gold ever hum in your bones, she asks. You pause, think about it, then nod. A little. She nods back, satisfied. Time moves strangely in the afternoon heat. It slows, loosens, unravels. You pass a water cellar pouring from a gourd painted with swirls. His water is cool, faintly flavored with herbs. You trade a pinch of salt for a cup. It tastes like mint and something else. Something like crushed leaves and rain from a place you've never seen. You spot a man with a pet lizard on his shoulder, dyed bright yellow. He claims it brings good fortune. He also claims it sings, but only when no one is listening. A group of boys chase each other through the edge of the market, laughing too loudly. One of them is pretending to be a camel, the others are pretending to be kings. No one pretends to be a trader. That's never the fun role. A blindfolded woman throws cowrie shells onto a mat, then mutters something to herself. A customer nods solemnly, then runs off in the opposite direction. You rest again just for a moment. Watch the colors of the market. Red cloth drying on a line. Yellow spices heaped in woven baskets. Blue-dyed robes flapping in the breeze. A merchant stirs a pot of something steaming and foul-smelling. He insists it's medicinal, probably is, but you decide to skip that particular adventure. You trade for 2 mangoes instead. Soft, slightly overripe, perfect. You bite into one and let the juice drip down your chin. A bee hovers near your elbow, changes its mind and buzzes away. You wipe your face on your sleeve and breathe in the heat. It's slowing now. The day, the crowd, the world. The sun is preparing its descent. Soon, people will begin to pack up, count earnings, curse bad trades. The market will quiet, fold into itself like a sleeping cat. But not yet. One last memory waits. The girl beside you, now busy carving spirals into the dust with a mango seed, leans toward you. You hear the one about the fish that swallowed a merchant whole. You glance sideways. No. She grins. Maybe I'll tell you tomorrow. And like that she stands, brushes off her tunic and vanishes into the crowd. You don't call after her. Some people are like wind. They pass through, leave a story, then go. The baobab's shadow has shifted. Time to stand, to gather what you've traded for, to walk slowly into the final stretch of this day. But first, you touch the tree, not for luck, not for belief, just for a moment of stillness. The bark is rough, sun-warm. It hums faintly like memory, and the market breathes behind you, waiting for the sun to fall. The light begins to lean. That long, golden tilt of sun that turns everything honey-colored, dust, skin, cloth, stone. Even the sharpest edges look soft in this hour. It's the kind of light that makes you forgive people, even the ones who tried to cheat you. The market is beginning to shift. Traders fold cloths with slower hands. Shouts turn to murmurs. Some stalls close altogether, shutters swinging shut with tired sighs. Others stay open just a little longer, just in case. Because hope is its own kind of currency here. You've done well today. Not perfectly. There was that deal you probably could have pushed harder. And the salt slab chipped on one corner when the goat stepped on it. But overall, your pouch is empty in the best way, not because you were tricked, but because you chose. And now you walk, slowly, letting your feet guide you past places you didn't see earlier, because now is the time for noticing. Not trading, not calculating, just noticing. To your left, a girl untangles dyed thread from a basket, her fingers moving like wind through water. To your right, a potter sprinkles ash over a kiln, humming an old funeral song. For the pots, he says, every firing is a rebirth or a burial. You pass a man sleeping with his mouth wide open, snoring beside a stall of wooden spoons. One spoon is clutched in his hand like a weapon. You step carefully. In the distance, a flute begins to play. Its notes rise and fall like someone sighing into a bottle, fragile, almost apologetic. It plays something familiar, something that makes your stomach feel like it's both full and empty. You pause. A small figure stands at the edge of the path, barefoot, blindfolded, holding a stick carved with symbols you don't recognize. A child. He lifts his chin toward you, though his eyes are covered. "Give me your hand," he says. His voice is soft, sure, younger than you expected, but older than it should be. You hesitate, but then you do. His hand is small and dry. He turns your palm over, runs his thumb along your fingers. "You carry a memory," he says, "that doesn't belong to you." You say nothing. He smiles. "Keep it safe. It's important to someone." Then he lets go and steps backward into shadow. Gone, no one else seems to have noticed. You stand very still for a long time. Then you start walking again. The streets are thinning now. The sellers pack their goods with practiced hands. Children chase shadows. Dogs curl into themselves like commas. And you begin the slow journey home. Your hands dusty, your soul full. You cross back toward the river. The boatman is there again. Same red-stained teeth, same soft humming. He asks nothing. You say nothing. The two of you row in rhythm, the oars slicing through dusk. The water smells of fish and memory. In the distance, a bird cries once, then falls silent. You disembark quietly. Walk the last stretch alone. The path curves through tall grass now, gold-tinged and whispering. The air cools. The first stars peek through the velvet sky, shy and blinking. At the edge of your village, someone has lit a small clay lamp outside their door. The flame dances gently as if nodding welcome. You step inside. Remove your sandals, dust your hands, unwrap your cloth bundle. The salt slab, the mangoes, the cloth your sister wanted, and the tiny leather scroll with the prayer. You place them all down carefully. Not like trophies, but like gifts, because that's what they are, what you brought back, from a place where dust is traded like destiny and gold is never just metal, it's myth, memory, and mystery. You sit. The walls hum with quiet. From outside comes the distant sound of a drum, then a hush, and above you the stars begin to sing. But before you sleep, you stay seated just a little longer, letting the silence stretch, as if the night itself were waiting for your thoughts to finish. Your fingers trace the carved lines of the wooden charm from earlier, the one meant to help you remember only the dreams that matter. The surface is smooth and familiar already, like something you were always meant to find. You press it to your heart, just lightly. No magic required, only intention. You step outside once more. The night has deepened now. Darker blues giving way to black velvet. The moon hangs above like a pale coin, thin, bright, and nearly spent. In the far distance, a hyena howls once uncertainly. You smile. There's comfort in that somehow. Even predators yawn sometimes. As you return indoors, your mother's voice calls out faintly, just your name. Checking, not urgent, just making sure you came back. You answer. One word, then stillness. Your mat is cool. You lie down, pull the cloth up. Let your body remember every step, every bargain, every breath. Let your eyes close slowly, like curtains at the end of a long, golden day. Now the market has quieted. The gold dust has settled. The stories are folded into blankets, the songbirds tucked beneath cages, the scales placed gently in baskets to sleep. Even the baobab rests. And you've returned with more than you carried out. Your hands remember every clasp, every bargain, every moment when silence spoke louder than words. There is no wait quite like a day well lived. And as the darkness deepens and the river dreams beneath its blanket of stars, you let go of each sound, each color, each breath. Let them drift like incense. Let them fade. The market will rise again with the sun. But for now, the world is still, and so are you. Good night, traveler of dust and gold. Sleep well.